Hello, everybody. How we doing? Thanks for tuning in. This is the second episode of the Form VOLTRON podcast. For those of you who listened to the first one, thank you. And as we promised, today we would start having guests. We have our first guest today. This is going to be a good episode. We really hope you can learn something from it. And just to give a little introduction, I guess the best way to say it is right now in the United States, as most of you listening know, there's been a huge, huge debate in this country about parental rights, especially with the schools, what they're teaching in the schools. And you may or may not agree with it, topic for another day. But where I'm sitting right now, well, I would say this. It's in the United States, but I'd say there are areas in this country where the problem, specific areas where the problem's probably debated a little more and where it's a little more of an issue and the parents are concerned. Right where I'm sitting, Massachusetts is definitely one of those places. So our guest today, this is a great example of it's a story of parental rights and what happens when those are taken away. Some of you may not recognize his name, but when I bring back the story to your minds, you will definitely know, you will remember this. And especially in this audience, there are people here that were waiting for this episode and they know who he is. My guest today is Thomas Evans. If you remember, he is the father of Alfie Evans. What happened with him, I guess for lack of a better word, in my opinion, and we'll let Thomas kind of elaborate on this, his child was held against his will. And ultimately, he passed away. And it was, I don't know if you would say at the hands of the British medical system, healthcare system, government. We can get into that. But it's a story that you all need to hear because I firmly believe it is heading here to America if it hasn't already. And again, we just spent a few minutes talking with Thomas. I want this to be positive. We're flattered that he's here, and he just did such a great job standing up for himself and his child and his family when this happened back in 2018, I believe it was. And we're gonna get into it. So Tom, thanks for being here today. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for reaching out to me and wanting this to be a part of your show. I really appreciate that. And as I said before we started recording, I appreciate yourselves and obviously everyone involved in this and getting this put together. So thanks again.
Right. Well, thank you. We had some technical difficulties here with the internet. I'm not going to get into it, but we it was funny. Yeah, it's funny. And Tom was had some things he had going on, but we're all here right now, so we're good. Thomas, here's my first question, and I don't even know how much. Maybe you aren't even have the complete answer, but I'm trying to understand because here in America, a lot of times they warn. A few years back, every talk show you heard kept saying what's happening in England could come here. My understanding, and I'm going to give a simplified version. If I'm wrong, you can elaborate a little bit. My understanding is because you have a publicly funded healthcare system, meaning the taxpayers pay for it, that therefore the hospitals are no longer private. They're working on the taxpayers' money. So when it comes to, deciding whether or not somebody is worth saving, that authority is now given. I don't know if you say the government or the hospital. Is that how it works, and that's why they're given such authority? Could you explain that to us, just to get started?
Yeah, to be honest, it's quite tricky over there because you get the likes of your football, your higher class people paying for private healthcare. So
right.
That's where you can debate whether it's all going to go private for the sake of everyone should be entitled to the same. Everyone should be treated the same.
Right.
If they pay, we pay.
Right.
Prime example, if we are now waiting for this NHS to go private, in the build up to that, this is the pressure we're going to feel. So you know, a price that we were told of for a night for Alfie was £1,200 to that's to, you know, accommodate him, to give him
Right.
the machines he needs and
Right.
stuff. So when you calculate that over the period of 16 months, it kind of has the government questioning this child.
Right.
There's no benefit.
Right.
It's going nowhere. The case. It's wasting a lot of taxpayers' money.
Right.
It's a wasting a lot of time, and for from their point of view, they could see another child in that bed and who could potentially come out of the coma. So it's
Right.
down to health and it's down to money, and it's always going to be like that with the NHS.
Right.
And that's exactly what we believe it was down to, as well as maybe a mistake made previous to the situation that we ended up in. So it's definitely government are sitting behind the doors now. Whilst we all believe that we're not going private, it's definitely getting put into place, to be honest.
Right. And Tom, you actually, it's funny because you just kind of answered, I think you answered my next question. So, and before, I just want to get this out of the way before we get in the story. It sounds to me like there are maybe places you could go to a private hospital if you have the money. Like it is possible, but it's tricky, you said. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, to be honest, now, to be fair, the situation that we're living in now, especially, I think the COVID was kind of for them the final touch to the cake, because since COVID, people are struggling now to get back to the way things was. So everything that they used to have on NHS, prime example, dentists, people who have dentist treatment paid for, are now being told they're not taking on NHS patients no more, and to have a tooth taken out, you're going to have to pay privately. So 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, before the COVID started, you had a dentist. If you needed a tooth taken out, you go, it comes out, you don't pay a penny. 4 years, COVID hits, people can't go to the dentist, attend for appointments, therefore they lose the place on the dentist role. And then you have people who have money taking their place because they can pay. So now dentists are saying, everything's most paying treatment now. So it is tricky because, for example, I know people who've been waiting for a dentist or for an NHS dentist to be taken on for 2-3 years. So picture the pain and the stress there under not knowing if it's worth paying £120 for the tooth to get taken out. But then how many more teeth in the future will you need to be taken out?
Right. Okay, great. Well, thank you I just want to get that out of the way first so we can just have an understanding, because I'm sure there's some people here that might not completely get it. And I think at the time, a lot of people here didn't completely understand how this could happen. So what I want to ask you was this, Tom, so getting more into the story. My first question is, you bring Alfie to the hospital, he had a neurodegenerative problem. Did you feel, at what point did you kind of feel that this hospital was not going to be on your side? Like, in other words, did you get an immediate vibe, or do you feel they at least gave it a good effort first and then came to you? At what point in the timeline did you know something was wrong here, that you were in trouble?
I'd say within pretty much 2-3 weeks. You know, we went in, I think, start of December. And Alfie, as we've all quoted, me, Kate, and doctors, we quoted, and we know when we took Alfie in, he was awake, he was alert, and he wasn't 100% because he wouldn't be in the hospital if he wasn't. But he was definitely awake. He was alive, and he was aware of surroundings. So at the start of December, we take him in, and it's all new to us. You know, it's a first baby, it's a big hospital, a lot of pressure, a lot of anxiety, a lot of questions to me and Kate, but then obviously questions to the doctors. And within 2 weeks, as I say, he started to deteriorate because they started treating the chest infection. And with a lot of detail, we can go into a lot of detail about the medication he was first given as well. But to just keep it short and narrow, he was given antibiotics, then he was starting to have some jerks, which microtic jerks. Then to control them, he was given sedatives. So then that's when he kind of went sleep. Young baby, you know, 6 months old, can't handle that type of sedative, ketamine, what put horses down, midazolam, that type of stuff. So on the 21st, I think 22nd of December, 3 days before Christmas, Alfie went really downhill, and like we even seen it in him physically, and from the signs he was showing. So that's when they first ever approached us to basically do not resuscitate. Alfie's finished. Sorry to say, but basically he's not coming back from this. Both lungs collapsed. So they're going at their medical view. They're not giving us much option apart from to let him go. And this was in the matter of 2 or 3 weeks. We're still in the unknown. All we know is he's had some form of pneumonia, chest infection, bronchitis. So that's when I first was given the insight to this is going to be a tricky one again. This is going to be a challenge. These are coming on hard. And me and Kate, as young parents back then, I think they come on a bit too hard. They come on a bit abrupt, come on a bit stubborn, but we didn't feel the vibe, whereas they were wanting to try some more things. And this was without knowing anything what was up with them at the time. So I'd say 21st of December, within the first 2 or 3 weeks of being in the hospital, that's when I started to feel what's going to be a really hard time, basically.
And Thomas, the thing is, like, you kind of answer my questions for me. You just said, you're keeping it simple. We all, we can get into all this technical stuff, medical rhetoric, of course. And I've seen, I've done a lot of research on this, getting ready, and I feel like anything that was written on it or any videos that I see, they're missing the point. The point is not the medical aspect of it. The point of this story and what was so devastating and what people need to hear today, and it's almost unbelievable, was that you got to a point where you said, okay, we're going to take him out of the hospital and bring him somewhere else. And they said no. That's a very difficult concept for a lot of people. I don't care where you live in the world. I mean, that's unbelievable. You were told no. You even said at one point, I think you said when you were going to take him out, they hit an alarm and called the security guards or something. Was that correct? Like, I mean, this is unbelievable. Can you just tell us a little about that?
Yeah, so basically it come to the end of the court case. I'd done everything I could. People were coming up to me saying, my lawyers were saying, in legal terms, you've made history. And not to take that away from the situation, but they were saying we cannot go to court again. You've been twice. People only get one shot. You've been to every single court case twice. So this is it. There's nothing we can do no more. You have to just enjoy time with him. So I still couldn't really grasp that. I was still thinking, no, there's got to be something. So then after the court, we organised the air ambulance company from Germany to come on over. They came over with the medical team, with the jet. They landed at Liverpool John Lennon Airport. They got a taxi straight to the hospital. I went downstairs to the emergency department. I brought them up to Alfie's room. All that they wanted to do a check on him there and then. And under the nurse's nose, they done the check, and he looked at me and said, he is fit to fly. So from that point, we get the doctors, come on, we've got our doctors, and we tell them basically, sign a paper, sign his care over. And they just, no. The problem we had then, where it all went sour, tricky, went really, really above and beyond, they then had the police swarm the hospital. And I mean, 100 police officers minimum. Minimum. They then brought 2 officers up to the intensive care unit, and in a room next door to Alfie, they took the 2 air ambulance doctors in there and threatened them and said, if you take Alfie or touch him, you'll be done for attempted kidnap and assault.
Weren't they? What do you call what they did? Wouldn't that be kidnapping? I'm sorry to interrupt you. I mean, that's the paint in the cauldron black. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
So in the process of all this, I'm in the room with Alfie, 2 officers on 12-hour watch. So we were getting watched for 12 hours a day, on and off, by 2 officers outside the room. We had family members getting searched. We had, absolute shambles. The doctors went above and beyond to make sure he could not get treated from either me. I was taking in tanks of oxygen and nutrients. I was taking supplements in just to keep him sustained until we can get him out of that hospital. and they just put a fight up in every single corner for it. So then, when the doctors that I arranged to take Alfie come back out of the room, they kind of they were shook up. So they went to leave the hospital, and the supporters outside was trying to like block them in and stop them.
Right.
While I was upstairs, I was arranging Kate in a wheelchair. I pushed Kate into the room, and I was about to pick Alfie up and put him into Kate's lap and take him to the taxi where the doctors were heading.
Yeah.
And a police officer grabbed my arm and said, "Look, I don't want to have to say this, but I'm so sorry, but if you touch him, you're going to be arrested for assault." And I went, "What? It's my son. I've got every right to touch him. He's my son, etc., etc." And then the police officers were then given fake, false information from the doctors and all the hate that Alfie was a ward of court, which I don't know if you know that the term ward of court. It means that you belong to the court.
Okay.
So while I was arguing with these officers, that's not true, that's not true, all the hate doctors were buying time to put the application in to make Alfie a ward of court. This went on for about 3 or 4 hours. And then the doctors come through with the chief of Merseyside Police and said he is a ward of court.
Right.
I went mad because I knew he wasn't a ward of court. I just went through all the court process.
Yeah.
So what the doctors done was they kind of bribed the police to buy time to make Alfie a ward of court. So then that puts the full lock on me not touching Alfie or anybody touching Alfie, because he did not belong to us. Right. He didn't belong. So the rights were stripped. Everything was. It was just like he was just taken away, just like grabbed and it was just one of the most craziest, bizarre.
It is bizarre. Yeah,
I've heard ever.
Yeah, and Tom, again, I appreciate you telling us this, because this is the part that I wanted to get. I mean, you're talking about what I wanted to get into. I don't think a lot of the news reports got deep into this. Like, I mean, that the impact, the weirdness of it all, that this could happen. Tom, one thing you just said right now, and I have this conversation all the time out here in this state. There's a lot of police out here that don't like what they're seeing. And it's the same thing every time. They don't like it. I'm sorry I have to do this, but I need a job. And it's a tough pill for them to swallow, because I tell them all the time, and some of them are in this audience, I know maybe that's not why you signed up for that job, but you're facilitating, you're keeping this system intact when this type of thing happens. When the people want to, I know you had your supporters out there, and it feels like the police were more invested in stopping your supporters from getting in the hospital than they were in protecting Alfie.
That's, you have public interest, The police have their own laws to abide by.
Yeah.
And one of them is the public's interest.
Yeah.
So if we felt alarm and distress in the street and we seen a police officer, we'd run up to him and he'd publicly, he'd defend us when he'd support us. Right. In that case, I think the police were stuck in a catch-22, whereas they don't want to face to that type of drama.
Right.
But they had to stand there. So after that, the police got a lot of criticism.
Right.
A couple of officers retired, doctors retired. That this will forever live on in their lives.
Right. Yeah.
Their decisions, what they made that day, impacted on mine, Kate's and Alfie's life forever.
Right. Tom,
it wasn't just the judge, was it? It was the police for putting, slow movements on us taking Alfie to hospital. Then there was also the doctors who actually lied to our face, lied to the police, lied to the world, lied to the whole NHS.
Right.
They lied to themselves. They lied to their own. It was just corrupt at its finest. It was corrupt to the finest, and I watched it. I lived through that corruption.
Right. Tom, you made a comment that I really wanted to ask you about, because it's something I noticed as well. I don't want to get in a whole long drawn out story about things I've seen or been through, but you made a comment, and it was quick, and I only saw it on one news report, where you actually said you felt the doctors were smirking at you. Do you remember making that comment? at all, or am I?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen
Yeah,
that.
I remember. And what you saying that instantly, the doctor who's turned the machine off, his face is right there, right now, on the front of my mind with that smoke smirk. That's just that automatically stays. That's a traumatic face. That's a traumatic part of my mental health that I will forever go with.
Right.
I'll never forget the faces that they pulled. I'll never forget the confirmation, the sniggers.
Right.
You know, they come in, they show you the most down sympathy. You know, they put the shoulders down and the faces down and everything, all the emotion falls through.
Right.
And then within 30 seconds of leaving the room with you, you know, the smiling, the joking, the planning meals, the planning events, holidays. It's just an act. It's an act, you know, it's a Sherlock Holmes. They're just the greatest actors that I've seen.
Tom, I've gotten a lot of grief over the years for saying what you just said. I forever, you know, again, another just tough pill to swallow. Think about, like, the coronavirus really showed us this. The medical industry is a powerful force in my country and yours. I mean, if you think about it, I've always felt that I don't care. People are not immune to this when they're given power. I've always felt there is an arrogance in that community. And we look at them as they're these perfect angels, and I've never bought into any of that. Think about it. I mean, you're putting all this importance in their hands, people's lives, whatever. I could see how at some point that's going to go to their head. And I think that exists. And again, a lot of people get angry when I say that. And I think what you're saying right now, I mean, it definitely backs up what I'm saying. I've seen it with my own eyes. You're giving these people a lot of power when lives are in their hands. And then something like this happens. And I think some of them I really think they become desensitized to people's feelings and to the patients they're dealing with. Would you agree with that at all? Or am I being too harsh?
Yeah. I mean, I've watched them go into plenty of meetings where children's lives are at risk, and they have advised the parents to take the machine away.
Right.
And I've watched them go in there and, as I say again, put the old sad act on.
Yeah.
And I've watched them come out there and it's just like that meeting never happened to them. So for me, I understand that protocol is not to get attached to the children or the cases or the parents, but there's a way to approach a set of parents who's going to lose a baby that's just come out of them and has been born. For example, I've seen babies weeks old, going and taking the machine away from them.
Right.
And it's to me, it's always the title, best interest.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know now. I just mention this real quick. I've just had an email over the BBC series, which is called Best Interest, and it's just being put out over here in the UK.
Oh wow!
Okay. And it's a drama series, and it's called Best Interest. And I had the email to do that.
Yeah.
But BBC, as you know, with the news outlets that were posting the stories of Alfie's, not everything was 100% accurate or true.
I could tell. Yeah.
Because they have to go to their bosses and get approval, whereas on a podcast, on a private interview with someone who's allowed to, expose whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, these medias couldn't expose what I was wanting to expose. I was getting cut out. So this BBC drama series, for me, I'd rather go on Facebook and do a live.
Right.
And let them know. Because what I want them to know really isn't going to happen on that BBC show.
Right.
So the best interest now is becoming a highlight. But what I feel like is happening is I feel like the hospital are trying to encourage these to go out there because they want us to understand the real meaning of best interest.
Right.
Because but that's a best interest medically.
Right.
It's not a life decision.
Right.
The best interest for us, is it? It's the best interest for them and for the NHS. It's in their best interest to clamp down on the prices and try and fulfill their means and their demands of the yearly salaries, what they can't go over. It's all to do with numbers at the end of the day.
Right. Tom, the other thing I want to ask you, and I guess you could probably give a general answer for all this stuff. Like you just mentioned Germany at one point, flying Alfie to Italy. You met with the Pope. These are some incredible meetings and arrangements that you set up. I mean, it's impressive. Was that all you in your family putting that together, or did you get like were you ever contacted by Italy? Was that all your arrangements?
At one point in the hospital, when someone advised me to go to the media, I think it was a friend. Said, try and put a bit of pressure on, go and do an interview.
Right.
I think it was mostly Facebook where it started going on when we
it was a lot of
created the
campaigns on the
page.
internet. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, but I don't really take credit for what I do because I had a lot of help, but a lot of help was misleading.
Right.
And a lot of it was we were led astray.
Right.
And basically what I done was I sat at the bedside and I was constantly phoning lawyers from literally all over the UK to take the case on.
Right.
I wanted lawyers that weren't going to do it just for the limelight, the fame and the money. I wanted them to do it for Alfie's best interest from my point of view. I wanted them to listen to me and I wanted them to do what I wanted them to do for Alfie.
Right.
But I sat at Alfie's bedside and I'd done a lot of research. I wrote a lot of health points up. I've got a book here that I could also show you. I wrote down everything. I had papers and papers and papers. I done everything at first on my own, and then I reached out to the Italians, and then I basically phoned how the Pope happened. I was sat up with Alfie at about 10:30 in the night, and I basically just said to an Italian, it was an actual a newspaper was reported in Italy. I said, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to fly over to Italy now, and I'm going to stand outside the Vatican, and I'm going to grab the Pope's attention. So when I told her that, she went ahead then to try and work her way up to the Pope through the Cardinal and the bishops. She started reaching out to friends of friends, and then friends of friends were like, wow, Tom Evans wants to come here. Wow, it's the big case in UK. So then I constantly went on and on at them, and I ended up booking a flight over. And as I was on my second flight, because it was a late flight from Liverpool John Lennon Airport, we had to do two airport runs because it was an early hours one. So I got my suit on at like 10:30 in the night, UK time, and then I ended up getting into Italy for about 6 o'clock the next morning with all the messing around at airports. And then that's when I found out that the Pope would pause his audience to have a meeting with me. So when I actually left Liverpool just with what I was going to do with my mission, and my mission was to go to that Vatican, and whether it was to climb a wall and get arrested and let the Pope know that I've just tried to get to him, I was going to do anything, anything legal and anything that was safe for me to approach the Pope. So at 6 o'clock in the morning, I got a text message to say, we've managed to speak with the Cardinal, which is one down from the Pope, and he's got you a meeting with the Pope Francis, and this is going to happen at 8 o'clock. He had about 40,000 people in the audience, to go out and speak to, like he does every week or so. And he paused them. I went into the Vatican, and I was escorted soon by the guards, and kind of had a little. I think I got 20 minutes with him to discuss the case. And then as I came out, he's therefore invited me to the audience, and then brought Alfie's case up in the audience. So that was, that happened because of the person who I reached out to. But I would have done anything to make that happen anyway, regardless. So my goal was, I'm going over there. Another thing was all these court cases, and that was basically me just I wouldn't stop really. It's like once you pop a pack of Pringles, you can't stop. I just wouldn't stop. I just did not stop. People were saying it's the end, we can't do no more. I said, oh no, there's we can. I will find an alternative. So, I had legal team in America, legal team in Italy, legal team in UK. So I was just on Skype all the time, constantly putting plans together, putting applications together, putting anything together I can to just stop it and try and get Alfie over there. And I arranged the Italian president of the Bambino Gesù Hospital. She came over. I had Dr. Hubner, who was an air ambulance. He also came. I had everything. I just didn't have the answer to why. Why we couldn't. That's it.
And Tom, I only have a couple more questions. And again, I really appreciate this. I know it's a little later over there where you are. Before I ask these last couple questions, I just want to pause again to remind people. You had, one of the plans, again, the big story here to me, it's not even the medical aspects of whether, what state of mind Alfie was in physically or whatever. It's the fact that you were trying to bring him at one point to Italy. You wanted to get him anywhere out of that hospital, and the hospital said no. They took your parental rights, regardless of what their assessment was of his health. That has nothing to do with anything. That's your choice to take him, and that choice was taken away. And that's like the big message here that I want people to get out of this. People that are concerned about what happens here with their children, and that, again, we've had this debate here in this state. I haven't.
On the phone.
Are you okay there?
Yeah.
Okay, you see us? Okay. Tom, I have kind of an odd question, and I remember thinking this at the time, and I don't know if this ever passed through your mind, or maybe in retrospect, or maybe it hasn't at all. You like America, I mean, England and the United States, we are countries of pop culture. I mean, a friend of mine actually from England told me once that America's greatest export is actually television, music, movies, all that stuff. You've got celebrities over there. I wondered during that time, I remember wondering, why doesn't someone speak up? Like, there's got to be somebody in a high place. Like, it almost even seems like some of the politicians that were supporting you were almost incapacitated. I thought about the royal family, Tom. I mean, they pride themselves on human rights. And I remember sitting there saying, why doesn't someone from the royal family? I know this is kind of really thinking outside of the box, but did these thoughts ever... could somebody come help me and get me out of this? What are your thoughts on that?
That's exactly, you're 100% right. Like, I was waiting. I knew it'd be popping up in the Queen's papers, news, telly, conversation. I knew it was popping up.
Right.
I just didn't understand why none of them could do anything. I don't know. I was sitting there thinking, conspiring against them, thinking, the Queen knows what's going on, but she doesn't want to happen because the NHS has caused a mistake on Alfie, maybe, and the doctor's got to take the credit for that. And I don't know. I went to, you have heard of Meatball Molly, Paddy the Baddy, and the Smith brothers, Darren Till.
Okay.
I had them in the hospital. I had every high-powered, high-profile.
So you were getting some help. Okay, yeah.
So I had every high-profile celebrity that I could get my hands on from the UK, footballers, MMA fighters, boxers, singers.
See, I don't think the media didn't show us that. This is all news to me. Continue. I'm sorry.
So did you not know? Oh, well, yeah. So I've seen, Meatball Molly, Paddy the Baddy, Darren, so I know he's loved over in America. The three of them. I've met them. I have the contact details.
Okay.
I'm in touch with them now and again. Like Molly, I am anyway, because she. She likes posts on Instagram, and if I post a song, she'll ask what song it is, for example. But yeah, they were brilliant support for me. Paddy the Baddy, his first fight in the Echo Arena that he won. Yeah. He actually said he won that for Alfie.
Oh wow, okay.
And then he put Alfie's top on, and you could go back to that. I think it was I think it was Cage Warriors 4, 5, 7 or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, that was in the Echo Arena. Meatball Molly, football players, Jamie Vardy, and we had Everton Football Club be, supporting.
Wow.
They couldn't legally come involved.
Okay. So I stand corrected. I'm sorry.
We had a website for Alfie, so we were selling merchandise. We there was a petition up.
Right.
There was. We had everything. We had members of Parliament, members of the European Parliament. We just didn't understand why the Queen couldn't step in to do anything, or why the Pope didn't have any impact neither, because the judge said in court, and I'd like to let this be known, the judge kind of shrugged what the Pope said off and said, I wasted my time. So people think, wow, we went to the Pope and he really got the Pope's attention. In the judge's eyes, that was like a party trick, and it never pulled off. So it just got shrugged off. So the only person from that was the Queen, or a member of the royal family was the only one who could have potentially put a bit of pressure on for it to stop. I don't understand why that never popped off, but
well,
it's a question I'll never get the answer to, really.
Brian, did you have a question? You look like you wanted.
It's like you can swear on the Bible, but I mean the Pope don't matter in court.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and Tom, I'm Catholic also, just so you know. Like I am. You are too, correct? I believe. Yeah. So I mean, I'm on the same page. Like I'm sure we share a lot of the view. I thought that was a good move what you did. I have one last, and I would have thought too it would have done something. But my last question is this, Tom, and I wanted to finish with this. I mean, again, I think England and America are different, but there's also a lot of similarities too. And there's definitely a moral battle happening in this country right now. I often felt, and I don't know if you agree with me, but I feel like there are people right now in this world that have a certain belief, certain way of, life is just disposable. And I almost feel like when you have situations like what happened with Alfie, they'll use that to make their point, and they don't care who gets hurt or who loses their life or whose lives are ruined. Do you feel maybe this was one of those situations where they were out to make a point? They looked at you guys as the those annoying religious people that want to save a life or whatever, and it was just, this was to send a message. I know that sounds harsh, but do you have any thoughts on that? Do you think maybe that was a possibility?
I don't really know if me religion and that was really a part of it. He knew I was Catholic, and he knew what my belief and what my faith holds. But the doctor, I kind of, I'm just gonna let the nationality. He's German.
Okay.
So everyone's got views on Germans.
Right. Okay.
He wasn't Catholic.
Right.
He was, there's many things I could say, but I'm really not going to go into it. I think you understand. Yeah. So I more looked into his country, so his country's beliefs.
Right.
So I looked into that, and as you said, that when you just stated then that they wanted to kind of use us as an example to say, yeah, look, this is what happens if you're going to come up against us.
Right.
That is exactly true.
Wow. Okay.
There's not one family member I've met who've been allowed to leave that hospital, regardless of the child being in a coma or not.
Right.
So there's questions there again, like if that child, for example, is alive, he's awake, he can be transported from A to B, he's not in a coma.
Right.
Why can't they let him go to America for this brain stem cell treatment plan, which you've probably heard of?
Yeah.
So it's just, it's not just Alfie's case. Alfie's was a case that he couldn't, he wasn't aware of because he was in a coma.
Right.
But the children who aren't in these comas, whose parents are still fighting for them to go to Americas and to other countries for treatment, the hospitals still A, won't pay for it, and B, won't support them in that, won't accommodate them on that.
Right.
So it's a question of what is the doctor's aim and what is their achievements are of stopping parents from having every say and every right over their children. Because from my point of view now, my children are my children, but once they go into hospital, they become the government.
That's a scary thought.
They belong to the government then, especially if you're getting into a situation where your child's got severe problems and it's going to be a long stay in the hospital, because then it becomes the battle of, is this child's bed worth paying £1,200 a night when we know he's not going to end up to kick a ball again? And that's what they said to me in the hospital. They said, your belief is very, they said I was senile. They said I was kind of stupid, they kind of put me down as this idiot because I was believing that I'd get Alfie to Italy and he'd wake up and play hide and seek and he'd be this, he'd be a world's best football player. It wasn't nothing to do with that. It was to do with what I thought was best for him, and what chances I believed he deserved.
Right.
And it's not also that it's I don't think anyone's got the decision on someone else's life. At the end of the day, I've got no right to go into the street and run someone over, or it's not a normal thing to tell someone that I am going to decide that his life is not worth living. Right. It's just not a decision that no one can make on your child, and that's where they were fighting their corner, because they were telling us that they were right. Right. They think he's going to die. He deserves to die because he's got no dignity here, and he's not going to end up the child that you then want him to be. He's not going to be riding the bike. And regardless of what you think and what you want this child to do, my child is my child, and I will care for him in any position as long as we know he's not suffering and he's still receiving some form of comfort. If he can feel our touch but can't express it, at least he can still feel the touch.
Right.
If he knows we're in the room but can't tell us, at least we know he knows we're there.
Right.
And that's what it's all about.
Right.
It's about feelings.
Right.
It's about the emotions, and it's about the senses.
Right.
And for one, when our girlfriends carry these children, their bond is already created from the stem of that egg.
Yeah.
So when the baby's here, picture the bond then.
Right. Right.
So whether you're sick or not, the bond will always be there with you and your kids.
Right.
Because you care for them and you love them and you protect them with all your heart, and you'd fight any battle for them, and that's what I was trying to do, really. I just didn't get the answer at the end of it.
Right. And Tom, just to be clear, I didn't mean that when I said, was it out to get Catholics? I didn't mean it like it was an attack on you specifically. I mean more like a movement, like, oh, those pesky people are out there protesting. And I am aware, Charlie God, we even had a situation here, the Terry Schiavo case years ago in Florida. So I'm aware of other cases where this, type of things happened. Brian, did you have any questions, Brian, before? Are you good? Cool. So Tom, that, those are all the questions. Again, I want to keep it not too long. We really appreciate you coming on. And I just want to say too, it was great what you did back then. I mean, I was inspired by it. I know a lot of people over the world, around the world that brought attention to it. And I don't think this should be a sad or depressing thing. I think this is great that you came on here. I want it to be positive. I want people to learn from it. And I'm assuming you have other kids now. You've overcome it. Have you been able to proceed with life? And are you good now? I know it's always going to be with you. But how are you feeling these days?
Me or Alfie's mum, Kate, my girlfriend, will never, ever be good again because we've got to explain it all again, for one, and for two. We've got to try and adjust to not having Alfie with us. He was our first ever little baby.
Of course, yeah.
And we've got to kind of adjust to what would it be like at Thomas's age now. So Thomas is turning 5 next month.
Right.
And what Thomas is doing now, we just kind of resemble it all onto Alfie. So we're like, oh, that's what Alfie would have been doing. That's what Alfie could have been doing. And we've got a little girl who's the spitting image of Alfie now too. So we've got Thomas, who's 5 next month, and we've got Eliana, who's 2 next month. And as you know, Alfie would have been 7.
Yeah.
So it would have been perfect because there would have been a nice gap between the 3 of them, and it would have been a nice bond.
Right.
But it's just not easy. When we go and visit Alfie with Thomas is very clever. We believe he's going to have a very good IQ when he's older. And every question that he asks now, some people, it's cute, but it doesn't half remind you that these questions are going to come and come and come and come. And when he is old enough to ask these questions, he's going to be affected by it then, but he's not going to be affected to the way that we are, and we always will be affected. We will never, ever grieve, we'll never accept, and we'll never forgive and forget the situation we went through. And other parents know that, but the only thing fortunate for us was Thomas. After Alfie passed away, we were blessed to have Thomas. So, if we never had Thomas, I don't know if I'd be sitting on this podcast, that's for sure.
Well, Tom, Tom, and I want to say this too. I don't know if it helps at all, but I mean, I'm a huge fan of yours. You have supporters out here. I know you're helping people. I know that might be hard to understand, but coming from someone far away on the outside, I mean, like I said, you were one of the first people I got in touch with when I want to guess, and this is just fabulous talking to you. And I know you're doing good in the world, and I just hope that helps. If whatever that means to you. And I think you're doing a great thing. You did a great thing. And, do you have any final words before we go? Those are all my questions.
I just want to say thanks again to the both of you. Thanks to, your audience. Thanks to people who've put my name forward, to yourself. And I hope this can help people. I hope it can benefit people. I hope it can give people a little bit of a push to think, if I ever become in that situation, I'll do what Tom done, or if they even want to reach out to me, they could. But I just don't want anyone to think that these doctors are heroes. Some of them are picking battles, and some of them aren't what we think and what we want them to be. And if anyone ever becomes stuck on anything, then I'm always going to be there for them. And yeah, just once again, thanks for getting me on the show.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, thanks, Brian. Thanks, UI. Thank you. And Tom, if you can, we're gonna roll out now, and if you can just stay on 1 minute, just so we can say bye to you and properly. And thanks again. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you.